So I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. And I want to, especially in the beginning, just right in the beginning, thank all of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and family members who either served in Iraq or Afghanistan or who had family members serve in Afghanistan and in Iraq, both. And what I'd like to begin talking about is really what brought on these wars, and especially the war in Afghanistan in 2001. And of course, it's the murder of over 3,000 of our fellow American citizens. And we've been engaged really in an unprecedented war for really going on year 13 now in Afghanistan, with enemies who pose a grave threat not just to our nation, but really to all civilized peoples. And these wars, the wars in which you and your loved ones have served, I believe, are very poorly understood. And I think even today, most Americans don't really understand what is at stake. What is at stake in Iraq and the Middle East broadly, and in Afghanistan? And sometimes, there seems to be very little interest, despite the fact that we're at war, understanding the situation in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in northern Nigeria, in Yemen, in Mali, what happened recently. There is a great deal of continuity between those conflicts at a high level of generality. And I think it's important for us to understand how our enemies operate. What they basically do, and what they're doing in Iraq today, is they try to pit communities against each other, get people to fight each other along religious lines, tribal lines, and then what these terrorist organizations do is they come in and portray themselves as patrons and protectors of one of the aggrieved parties in this conflict. And then they use that foot in the door to establish control over those populations and over territory. And they perpetuate violence, typically through mass murder attacks and assassinations, and as they destroy the social order at the local level and impose their narrow, irreligious ideology on the people. The problem of corruption and organized crime in in Afghanistan, is tied to their recent history. This is a traumatized society. We toppled the Taliban regime, but we didn't really do a good job of answering the question of, okay, so what comes next? And how do we shape what comes next? So the parties that have been involved in this 30-year war, those that were opposed to the Taliban moved in and formed these nascent state institutions. These are militias that essentially effected state capture from the ground up. But they're also pursuing a political agenda, which is mainly to consolidate power in advance of a post-ISAF, post-US and allies Afghanistan. And why they're doing this is because they don't have faith in a long-term vision for the future of Afghanistan in which they believe their interests will be advanced and protected. So this is a short-term maximization of gains mentality.